I think it's 100% going to be much more mainstream. I think people in chess just sort of need to accept that, like, if Hollywood wants to cover chess stuff, it's going to be about the Magnus versus Hans Niemann scandal. And I think we just need to accept that. Like, drama happens. Chess is growing. It's fine. Even though a lot of people will know about that and not as many people know about this thing, it's still okay. We're still drawing attention to chess. Once again, there's a slice of pie out there for everyone.
Welcome to a brand new episode of Hop on Comms. I am really excited today as we kind of peel back the curtain on the wonderful world of games and the people that kind of occupy this space with these amazing stories they have. I'm delighted to welcome to our show Nemo Zhou, aka Nemsko. Nemo, it's great to have you here. The chess aficionado. You've taken the world by storm, courtesy of chess. We're going to talk all about that. But first, how are you? How's life right now for you?
Things are good, and it's so nice to see you again, Adam, especially after the first Twitch Rivals, or I guess the only Twitch Rivals we did. But I was really in awe of your hosting skills. Like, you're obviously hired by Twitch for this role for a reason, and you just bring so much good energy. So yeah, it's really good seeing you again. And
I didn't pay Nemo to say that. I promise you. That's really sweet. Thank you. And I loved working together with you as well, because I think that kind of Twitch Rivals that we did. And if you have not seen Twitch Rivals, it's a show where kind of streamers go head to head and compete against each other for prizes and such. It was dedicated to chess. And I was brought in, and I've dabbled in chess in my life, but I was baffled by the kind of the scale of chess online now. It's grown so much over the course of the last, would you say, the last 4 or 5 years?
Yeah, I would really say the last 4 or 5 years have completely changed the landscape of chess. Like before 2020, I would say the average person had really only played chess with their grandparents, and if you ever tried suggesting to play chess with your classmates, you would be labeled as that one weird kid, and you get bullied indefinitely. And now chess is the cool kids game.
It really is, and I want to talk all about that. But I think winding back the clock to kind of like you growing up for a second, because I think I was trying to look. I was looking kind of like your kind of journey as a kid, because you did a lot of traveling as a youngster. You were I think you were born in China, and then you moved to France, then to Finland. Is that right?
You did your research. I see.
Hey, what can I say? I mean, so was it about 5 years old you moved to Finland, and that was kind of where? Do you recall that kind of like traveling when you were younger?
Yeah, I do. So one of my, I don't know, stronger suits, or sometimes it's terrible because you don't always want to remember everything. I tend to remember things really well. So I very clearly remember moving from China to France first. And then I remember very clearly moving from France to Finland. So all of that is still I can pull back those memories if I wanted to.
Because I read as well that chess was a thing that entered your life kind of around the same time, and I saw Finland was kind of where you really started playing and competing, if I'm not mistaken. Was it kind of part of your life? Were you kind of, when you were growing up, was there competitive games in your family? Was it something that you kind of had always growing up? Was it something that kind of you could have found yourself?
I would say my family is actually zero gamers. Nobody in my family plays any games, especially my parents. So, gaming is really popular in China now, and my uncle and my cousins would play video games, but my parents growing up were super not into games. And in fact, they actively deterred me from playing League of Legends this is way later, when I was 17, quitting chess. I was I'm going to go play League. And they were like, no, you're not going to go play League, which honestly, to be fair, it sounds kind of rude. It sounds kind of mean, but I get it. League, I would definitely not encourage, if I ever had kids, to play League either. So anyways, no, they're not gamers at all. They're actually both PhDs. My dad has 2 PhDs, one in infotech and one in mechanical engineering. And my mom has a PhD in English philology. So from that, I think they were really competitive we had a very competitive household growing up, despite nobody being a competitive gamer or competitive athlete or anything like that. It was just super competitive, because you know how the academic space is.
No, totally. I mean, I guess chess as well in that kind of time was, I think it still is, seen as a academic game in many respects. Was it when you got into playing and you were competing, was it something that your family were they definitely got behind as well? They kind of encouraged you to play?
They very strongly encouraged me to play growing up. Yeah, they thought that chess was, chess is pretty good for you. And also because I just showed so much natural talent really, really young, it just felt like this is what she's going to do. And coming from like an Asian background, obviously, it turns out that if you show affinity for something, if you are good at something right off the bat, this is like you're going to do this one thing for the rest of your life.
I mean, I read again that you're in Finland when you made it to Finland. I think it was France you kind of found chess, but in Finland you started competing against other kids that were older than you. Was that kind of when you realized, okay, this could go the distance here? Because weren't you 5 competing against 10-year-olds or something?
Yeah, I was 5. I won the Finnish national championships when I was 10. When I was 5 for the under 10 section. So obviously I was 5 years younger than the maximum age you can play this category. And funnily enough, I really only lived in Finland until I was 10, 11. So I only ever played this category, and I would just win it every single year, basically from 2005 onwards, from 2006. But yeah, it was that. I think that was like really just that, yeah, I'm good at chess. I think it might have been different if I had grown up in China, because I'm sure my skills as a 5-year-old were good, but I don't know if they were like conquering a country of 1 billion people good, like this Finland's a pretty small country. So I think it was a mix of being naturally talented at the game and also having the right environment, because when you're growing up in it, like basically if you do something, you're going to be the best at that. Outside of like the winter sports, like unless you decide to be like a cross-country skier, like if you pick something, it's probably niche enough that you're going to be really good at it.
I can imagine that every 10-year-old saw the 5-year-old beating them thinking, I hate you, Nemo. I actually hate you. You're this good at chess. I mean, what was it like as well? I mean, because Finland's, I've been to Scandinavia. I've been to a few of the countries there. I've not been to Finland. It's on the bucket list to go. What was life like growing up in Finland? Was it quite a unique place as well? Like you said, it was kind of a small, but did you feel like this is very different to what I'm used to?
I wouldn't say I felt like it was different from what I'm used to, because I think I was too young to have really experienced anything else. I have very vague memories of like going to kindergarten and stuff when I was in China under the age of like right around 3 years old. And I have very clear memories of like living in France for 1 year, which I'm super fond of. But I would say I kind of just like lived in Finland. Like, obviously I don't look Finnish. I don't speak Finnish. I didn't speak Finnish at that time. Now I do. I just feel like this was home. Like this is where I'm going to grow up. I would ski basically every other day during the winters, and winters were long there. And I would learn Finnish in the school. Thankfully, I did go to an English-speaking, majority English-speaking schools. One of those like primary year programs and the national baccalaureate program. So they had like a base English, and you took like Finnish classes and stuff like that. Anyways, I got to learn like English as my first language, I guess, and then Finnish kind of as a second language. So it really just felt like home. I mean, obviously I sort of stood out, but nobody made me feel unwelcome. And because I was sort of like, I already won Finnish national championships at 5, everybody in the city basically knew me already when I was 5, and people would like say hi and be like, sinä olet tää shakkityttö, which is like, you're that chess girl. And I'm like, yeah, that's me. And it was like really kind of wholesome doing that, I guess. Like people made me feel pretty welcome.
That's amazing. I can imagine that. I mean, because even at that age as well, when you were only 5, did you kind of feel that the chess world, when you kind of got into it, and you started getting these accolades and winning these tournaments and becoming a national champion, did the world start to open up for you in terms of opportunity? I don't know how the chess world works in that respect. Because there's suddenly kind of like, people obviously take notice. You said like, locally, everyone knew who you were. But do you suddenly start to see a bigger picture of like, okay, this is where chess could go if I commit to this?
So funnily enough, my parents never really cared that much about my chess in the sense that they cared about chess itself. Like, how some parents really want their kid to become the Olympic champion for skiing or equestrian or like something, right? My parents just wanted me to get into a really good university. So coming out of China, I would say in the early 2000s, the opportunities were a little bit more limited. We didn't really have like financial resources. We weren't like, investment immigrants or anything like that. They were there purely on academic merit. And sort of coming from that, we imagined that it would be really difficult for us to, like my parents both came from really good universities in China. And I think from that, they were like, you have to get into a really good university in the Western world because that's what we moved here for. So growing up in Europe, we looked towards getting into Oxford, getting into Cambridge. And from a very young age, I was telling people like, oh, I'm going to go study medicine at Oxford or something like that. And I think from this, my parents thought that chess would be the best way for me to get into a good university because, on grades alone, you're not quite sufficient. You have all these like crazy, talented, extremely intelligent, gifted people who are, academic, winning some games, like being a model, being an engineer, people are just so well-rounded when they get into schools like this. And they thought that for me to get into a really good school, it would be really important for me to have something that made me stand out. So, yeah.
Did it end up happening at all? Did you go to one of these schools?
I did not, in fact.
Okay.
I moved to Canada, and then from there we tried getting to Harvard and Ivy Leagues and stuff. But I didn't get into those either.
It's exciting because again, I think about chess and you get the kind of, I guess it has so much merit to it in terms of when you kind of, you're trying to get into these different things and you think, oh, this can stand me out from the rest of the crowd here. I've got a real skill. And I guess when you kind of think about Finland and then you move to Canada, were you kind of obviously continuing that chess journey? Did you suddenly see, was it a very different space in Canada for the chess community? Was it a very different world to Finland? Did it feel bigger? Was there more opportunity there as well?
It was definitely bigger just because of population. I would actually say the city I grew up in northern Finland, it was called Oulu, had a very decent sized chess community for how small the city was. So I kind of think relative to that, Canada obviously has a bigger chess community because the cities are bigger, the country is bigger. And it was really interesting, I guess, playing in Canada because I already won like the accolades in Finland. Like I already won Finnish national, the Finnish women's championships basically at age 9. Like there wasn't as much competition specifically in like the women's category in chess. There's women's categories and there's open sections. So in Finland, most of the time when I was playing these under 10 tournaments, actually every time I was playing these under 10 tournaments, they were always open. I was always the only girl. And in Canada, there was actually a significant amount of girls that played chess. There was always I would always start playing the girls category. Like I stopped playing open sections by the time I was 11 coming into Canada just because, it'd be pretty insane for me to try to win the Canadian. Not that I can. I won a couple of open tournaments in Canada as well. Like every year I would play the Canadian school chess championships, and that was open. There was no girls only. I'd win that. But then when I played Canadian national championships, which is the one that qualifies you for the world youth chess championships, I would just play the girls section. So I think from that, it was kind of interesting to see this divide. It was really clear to me that I could compete with the boys, but it didn't really make that much sense to. It wasn't like I was going to get more out of it. So yeah, Canada was kind of good for that, I guess, because it put me on a really direct path as far as my chess was going to go. Like ideas to win Canadian national championships, win World Youth Chess Championships, the titles, like women Grandmaster title, and win North American Youth, and win all these tournaments.
Because I know there's going to be a lot of people who are kind of watching or listening to this who are genuinely fascinated about both you and what you do, but the kind of the wider world of chess. Like I'm trying to imagine myself. You're 5 years old and competing. When you're sat there and you're playing chess, do you have a certain play style even back then? And are you kind of always that's the way you play? Are you kind of experiencing certain things and going, oh, I'll use that in my next game? How do you develop as well as from that age? Are you how do you go about the way you try and win these things? Is it kind of different every time, or is there a certain way of doing it in your world?
I would say when I was growing up, I had my playstyle changed a bunch over the years because obviously you learn new things, you have new coaches, you have different coaches, you all that stuff. Things influence it. But I would always say the one thing I had in common was going for the win. I would always just try to win a tournament. It didn't matter if I was the lowest rated person. I would just try to play for a win every single time. And I think I carry that very much into adulthood. My play style is very different now from when I started out. Actually, it's probably very similar to when I first started out. There was like a phase in the middle where I had a very like positional, slow chess phase, and now I'm super aggressive. I just try to checkmate people all the time because I'm playing shorter time controls. It works better. So I would say I've actually kind of reverted back to my 5-year-old playing style. But outside of that, I wouldn't say that there's anything distinct that I do, or it's not really something that I think about. I would say, like, I'm very aware of my playstyle changing. I'm not trying to change it for any particular reason. I just think in specific years or during specific times, like, this is what I would rather do.
Are there trends in play styles as well, like generational trends, or you see kind of the new wave of players coming through, and they kind of like there's a certain way of winning or going about kind of competing. Has that changed over time, or has there always been this kind of classic mentality or classic kind of strategy that goes into it?
I would say it's definitely changed significantly in the last couple of years. Back in the early 2000s or 2010s, I guess, between 2000 and 2010, the most popular openings were oftentimes really slow. There was like, everybody loves to joke about this thing called the Berlin draw in chess, and sort of like the Berlin Wall. It's a pretty boring opening where nothing really happens and people draw in a certain number of moves. And this opening is thankfully played a lot less these days. I would say chess has gotten to a level where, with the rise of engines, with the rise of everybody having like access to these and coaches and all this, openings are pretty intense. And whoever does the best opening preparation is very much going to end up coming out of the opening with an advantage. Wow, what a surprise. But it's also made chess kind of different, I would say. Not everybody likes it, obviously, because it means that it's more work for the top players because they have to be so on top of things. But I also think for the average chess player, the people that are coming in, there's obviously a couple of openings that everybody loves to play. I think most people have heard of the London system. Most people have heard of the Vienna, thanks to Levy, thanks to Gotham Chess. Most people have heard of the Carlsen. And, there's these openings that are super trendy and fun to play, especially at lower levels. But at the higher level, it's still like this hardcore grind. Like, we have to get the best opening out.
You're saying these different terms for things, and I've never heard of them, and they fascinate me. I mean, I know things like the Queen's Gambit, obviously thanks to the show, and we'll get onto that shortly. But I mean, all these different kind of like these different play styles and things you mentioned and kind of openings. Is there like always a counter to that kind of way you start a game? Obviously, you say the openings are so pivotal. Is there always a counter for things? Are there some that simply kind of difficult to defend against? I mean, how have you found in your kind of playing history? Is it kind of, do you kind of see from the first kind of pawn or first kind of moves, you think, okay, they're doing this, I know exactly what's going to happen here? Like, are you thinking like 6 or 7 moves ahead? Like, I'm really curious about how far ahead you're planning.
For the openings, most of the time, yeah, I know the opening moves up to 6, 7 moves for sure. There's some openings I know way deeper than that, just because I've like analyzed them for my own World Cup matches or something, and they go like 20 moves deep. But at higher levels, yeah, most of the time you just have the response, the best response to this opening. You play this best response. There's not that much room for creativity. There is some, of course, but there's not as much room for creativity as obviously 20 years ago. Like, we've gone into a level where openings can be so thought out and figured out, and the best moves are there online if you want to look through it. That there isn't that much, but obviously at lower levels, people don't care a lot less. And there's why would you ever spend 100 hours looking at this one line of the London system or anything like that, right? If you're just an average chess player. But also to answer your question, I think like with the chess openings and with all of this, it's sort of getting to a point where it's a bit much. Like, a lot of people think it's a bit much. Like, why are we spending this much time on remembering all these openings? But the really popular openings are fun to start out in.
Because I think I would go as far as saying that the world now knows about the likes of Magnus Carlsen. Okay, I think he's become this, I guess, kind of real chess kind of beacon of, oh, that's the top guy, that's the top one. And you look at other players who kind of in and around. I think Nakamura as well is kind of in there too.
Yeah.
I think you got some big players. Why are they kind of renowned as being so? I mean, obviously they're Grandmasters, but why are they renowned as being so? Is it the win ratio? Is it kind of the fact that they have that kind of an aura around them? What makes them so I guess famous in the mainstream world as well?
Well, for Magnus Carlsen, I think that's an easy answer. He is simply the best chess player to ever walk on this planet. Like, we're in 2024. Chess has not changed in basically 400 or 500 years now. Magnus is just simply the best player ever. Like, there's not even a close contest. I would say if other players in the past had the same resources as Magnus has in 2024 with the engines and the rise of the computer and internet and ease of access to materials and all that stuff, right? They could get to his level, but right now, simply, like, point blank, he is the best player ever. And he's won, basically every tournament that's been important. He's been world champion for so long, and he's literally at a point in his life where he's like, I don't really care that much about defending this title. So I think all of that people love. He's just, he's so good that he is above playing the World Chess Championships. There would never be a time when somebody's like, oh, Magnus didn't play the World Championship, so therefore currently the world champion is Ding Liren from China, now the Super Grandmaster. Nobody would ever say, oh, Ding Liren is better than Magnus, even though he's currently world chess champion. We all know that Magnus Carlsen is like the best chess player ever. And then in Hikaru's case, I would say Hikaru was just one of the very first Super Grandmasters to stream on Twitch or create content in general. And Hikaru has always been a really good chess player. He's always been roughly in the top 5 best chess players. Also, currently ranked best 10 to 5 chess players, and he's always played the world's top tournaments and everything like that. So even in the chess community, he was always really feared, and he's just always been really good. I think in chess, it is very much the best players get the attention that they deserve.
Because I see there are so many kind of you see so many kind of clips and things, particularly of Magnus being late for stuff. He seems purposely. It's like, I'm always wondering, is that because he's just really bad at timekeeping, or is it always like a strat of some sort to kind of get in the heads of his opponent? Because they obviously, when you're a chess player, you're about to compete against the world's greatest, as you said. Do you think there's a bit of both there? Is it definitely kind of leaning towards one way? What do you think?
I mean, I would honestly just say Magnus isn't that bothered. He knows he can get away with it, so he just chess has historically been very, very strict. It's not really the type of game where you're allowed to just show up late. In fact, they actually implemented these rules that if you show up late in classical tournaments, you just lose the game immediately, even if you're 1 second late. So chess hasn't always been lenient, but I think with Magnus Carlsen, he's just he knows he's the best. So really, what is anybody going to say or do to him, right? And he just is doing what he wants to do. Maybe it's strategy to some degree. I highly doubt it, though.
I kind of love it in a way. I hope it is a strat. I think he's so big time. He's like, you know what? I'll turn up when I'm ready. Even if it means I've got a few seconds on the clock. I'm cool. I mean, for you as well, you mentioned some of the big names that we know about. Are there any kind of ones to watch, any players that kind of breaking through at the moment that you think are certainly worth people kind of taking note of, because you think they could be up there or thereabouts, kind of with the top dogs of this world, or the ones that are kind of there very much cemented in the kind of top of the leaderboard?
I would say there's a couple of names that are always on the top of the leaderboards, and those names would be people like Fabiano Caruana, Jan Nepomniachtchi, for example. They have been in the scene for so long. But a lot of chess players are coming out of India, and the ones that are coming out of India are typically really young. The current challenger for the World Chess Championships is a 17-year-old Indian Super Grandmaster who goes by Gukesh, and he is so good. He's 17. He might become world champion. His birthday is this month, actually, so he might be world champion of chess at 18. And I think that would be truly, truly, truly crazy if he ends up becoming world champion. But it's very likely that he can. And I think that's kind of where chess is going, is all these really young players. And the chess world is very much shifting in a direction where India is super dominant. It used to be Russia being very dominant for years on end. And Jan Nepomniachtchi has been playing under the FIDE flag because Russia is still doing Russia things. And he played against Ding Liren for the last World Championship title, and he unfortunately lost, which is why the title is currently going to a Chinese. But that being said, as far as men's chess, like the open section for chess goes, India is absolutely killing it. On the women's side, it's still China. China's still pretty dominant, although there's a lot of Indian youngsters who are like up and rising. One of them notably is a Grandmaster named Vaishali, and she actually, I used to play with her. It's really funny. But yeah, China is still currently dominating the world. When
it comes to like the chess and becoming world champion, you say like the accolade of being the world champion, I guess it holds so much weight. I mean, from a prize standpoint, like how lucrative is the kind of the prize pool? Is it about that? Is it more about, you said about different nations competing, like India's on top or China's on top? Is it about kind of the national side of things, like, oh, we're currently the greatest nation? And because I can imagine as well that, I guess, players, because there's got so much history, like 400 or 500 years, you said already. What are the prize pools like, and does that hold more than, I guess, the accolade of being the best of the best?
I would say, for the most part, as far as like sponsorships and all that stuff go, there's not that much sponsorship in chess. Like the World Chess Championships, I think had a prize pool of maybe $2 million, which is not nothing. Probably less. It's probably like 1.5 or something. And it's good, but that's for the World Chess Championships. On average, for example, if you win the candidates, I think I did the math, you're averaging about $120 an hour for pay for like a 3-week period. And that's not a lot. Sorry, this is just me there doing the math. I thought it was really interesting. They were getting paid, I think, $3,750 per half point. So over the course of the tournament, if you score about 7 points or something, anyways, I did the math, and they're playing like 5-6 hours they're playing a lot of hours a day. So when you like really do the math, it's not that much for a top level chess player. And it's obviously like only the top level chess players get to play in these tournaments that have these insanely big prize pools, because otherwise in normal chess tournaments you're getting like $300 per like you're okay. I played a tournament in Las Vegas where I think the first place prize was $5,000 and I was literally like, okay, well, this poker tournament that I'm playing the day after this chess tournament ends has a buy-in of $5,000 with a first place prize of like $900,000. And it's just like, it's such an interesting juxtaposition. Obviously, poker is a very bad example because poker is a game where you put in money to win money. But that being said, chess is just your typical game that has like no prize funding, like none whatsoever. However, it is changing, and a lot more people are interested in chess, getting more interested in chess. And also, countries like India, where they have a lot of rising stars, are focusing a lot on creating tournaments and providing this funding and funding their players, and it's a big source of national pride. I would definitely say for India, winning something like this is a much bigger deal than if somebody from Canada won. And it's kind of like the same for China. Like China cares a lot more about winning than, for example, like, I don't know, chess is just way more popular over.
Yeah, well, I guess it's the same as video games, right? You got different continents have different games that they kind of, some prefer like League of Legends, Dota,
right.
Others, kind of Counter-Strike or FIFA. I guess it changes from kind of culturally as well. There's kind of a big shift in what they play. But you mentioned poker there. Do a lot of the skills that you know from chess, do they kind of translate to poker? Like, are they kind of similar in any ways that you can kind of say? Is it kind of more about you, who you are as a person? Is it about kind of like the play style again we talked about? Like, can you, I guess, poker, you imagine if you're good at chess, you're good at poker as well? Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I would definitely say that is fair to say. I think a lot of the thought process that goes into chess can be translated into poker, with the way that you do critical thinking, with the way that you analyze what your opponent's doing, with the way that you think about ranges. A lot of this stuff just sort of translates over very well.
Because in poker, obviously you're playing the person as well. Obviously, there's the bluffing and such. You kind of assume what they're going to do each hand. I guess with chess, do you find yourself you're playing your game, or are you often playing your opponent? What's kind of, is it kind of a mixture of both? How would you say it usually goes down?
So for myself personally, I don't ever think about my opponent. I never think about when my opponent is bluffing or anything. Poker is a lot more solved than most people assume. It's kind of like chess. There's usually a best line. There's poker solvers. There's a game theory optimal strategy. When I play poker these days, I almost don't consider the other person, which I should, but I'm still at a stage where I'm like, okay, So he opened under the gun. I 3-bet. He called. What is his range? Does this board favor his range? Like, you understand what I mean? Like, I'm not really worried about what he's doing. I'm not really worried about like his facial expressions or anything. I'm just thinking about it mathematically. What is the probability of him having what? And what is it's all just a game of probabilities to me in my head, which I think is how I prefer to play games. I don't really like the human aspect that much of it. But that being said, obviously a lot of people are different. They prefer to just play and be like, okay, my opponent feels like he's bluffing here because of this thing he said. And I respect that so much. Like, a lot of those times, people that are really good in poker are good at both, right? Like, they have this game theory down, but they're also so good at reading, analyzing, and, you know, like communicating. Like, you can draw, you can like ask, you can converse over poker, and that's part of the game. You can talk to them and figure out clues from that. And it's really fascinating. In chess, I would say the game is very much like, you know, black and white. You're either playing the best move or you're not. So I never think about the opponent in chess. I'm going
to ask you a basic question, but I'm interested. I'm sure everyone else is too here. You mentioned Grandmaster. You mentioned Super Grandmaster. What is a Grandmaster? How do I become one? Not going to happen. But how do you become a chess Grandmaster? And what's a Super Grandmaster? What's the difference?
So a chess Grandmaster is simply somebody who has hit a FIDE rating, so the official international rating of 2,500, and achieved 3 Grandmaster norms. When you have hit Grandmaster, when you have hit 2,500 FIDE rating, as well as these 3 Grandmaster norm things, which you win by playing in tournaments and having a certain performance rating. So, for example, if I play tournament A, I have a performance rating of 2,650. That is above the 2,600 threshold, which is what I need to get a Grandmaster norm. So therefore, I have 1 norm. I play tournament B. It doesn't go as well. No norm, whatever. I play tournament C. Okay, I did really well. Performed at 2,601. Okay, my second Grandmaster norm. And then let's say I play tournament D. Played really well again. 2,605 performance rating. Got my Grandmaster norm. I've hit 2,500. Now I'm a Grandmaster. That's how that works. Obviously, the path to getting there is really long and complicated because you have to play all these tournaments. And also, there's a lot of titles underneath the title of Grandmaster. For example, there's International Master directly underneath. There's FIDE Master. There's National Master, Candidate Master. And these are just kind of like ranks in League of Legends, you know? Like, it's literally just ranks. Kind of think of getting the norms as like your promo game. You used to have to win 3 out of 5, basically. And that's like how you would do it for a Grandmaster title. Super Grandmaster title isn't an actual title. It's just like it's thing. Like if you're a really good Grandmaster, yeah, if you're like 20 above the FIDE rating of 2,700, you're considered Super Grandmaster.
And once you make it to Grandmaster, are you like a Grandmaster? For some reason, I'm thinking like it's like when you become president, everyone always refers to you as Mr. President.
Well, nobody really refers to you by your like title in chess, but yeah, you get this title forever. Like, unless you do something to cheat or whatever, you can get downgraded, you can lose it, but very seldom, obviously. So yeah, you just get the title for life, no matter how low your rating goes, no matter how poorly you start playing chess. You have the title for life.
Wow. I mean, we talked a bit about it earlier on, about the kind of the digital era of chess and how it's just exploded into a whole other, you know, kind of world of the last few years. I mean, it seemed that during COVID, during lockdown, that was the kind of time period when things really, you know, became as big as they have done. You know, online chess. Do you remember that time and how things changed? How the landscape changed of chess, of going kind of from a person to person game suddenly being online, and kind of the streaming aspect and how it just absolutely exploded.
Yeah, I never really, you know, bothered that much with, like, I play chess, but I never really followed chess. I never really watched chess. Like, I was doing this to get into school. So when the pandemic hit and everybody started watching and talking about chess, I became a streamer basically right during that time, because I was ironically bored at school because we had moved online and I had a lot of free time on my hands. So it kind of like all came together as in a really, really weird way. So I essentially, you know, started streaming and all that stuff. And during the pandemic, Queen's Gambit came out. There was the PogChamps on Twitch. Everybody loved chess. And it really, really changed the chess landscape. Like, before then, it was mostly classical chess tournaments. There was like one big World Rapid and Blitz tournament a year. But nobody really played that much online, especially not the top chess players. And then during the pandemic, everybody started playing online and playing 90 plus 30-minute games of classical chess online would drive anybody mental. Like, imagine sitting in front of your computer with like another camera behind you, not being able to do anything because it's chess, not allowed to talk, not allowed to use your phone. You follow when you go to the bathroom in chess tournaments, stuff like that. Like, nobody was playing that format. That's the format that's been the most popular for so long. And during the pandemic, all of that changed because you just can't have that format online. So games got a lot faster. The average person developed an interest in watching, chess online. And ever since then, faster time controls have still been quite popular. Not as popular as I would like it to be. We haven't completely gotten rid of the classical chess time control, which I think is just outdated for 2024, my personal opinion. Why does every tournament have to be 6-hour-long games? Why can't we have the majority be a little faster? The chess world has changed dramatically.
Streaming as well is opens a whole new a big door to a whole new world of, revenue stream for a career as a streamer, as it has done as well here, and kind of taking you necessarily always have to be at tournaments in person all the time. There's a whole kind of business you've created online from home. Have you found that that's kind of like it's changed your perception of what your future looks like now, the way that things have changed and gone more digital?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, with chess, it was never really something that I thought I could personally ever make a living out of. Like, sure, I could grind coaching little kids and stuff like that at schools for, not bad pay. It's like I was doing that during college for like $60 an hour, Canadian. So, it's pennies in US. But anyways, I was doing that and it wasn't bad. It wasn't like bad or anything, but it wasn't very fulfilling. But chess wasn't really something that you could just play in tournaments and like win enough money. There's a few people that try it outside of the top, whatever, that are able to do it for an actual living, but they're not very successful. And you always have to supplement your income with coaching and, doing all this stuff. But nowadays, I would say it's so much easier to make a living off of chess. You don't even have to be that good at chess to, be a content creator, right? It's kind of the whole point of being a content, that you create content. And it's been an interesting conversation, I would say, in chess itself, because chess has always been a game where you can very clearly see who is better. There's no like, oh, maybe that person is a little better than that. But no, like you freaking know. Like, you know exactly how good that person is. You know exactly how good that person is. And it's been a really interesting sort of interesting seeing the navigation for that, because people will be like, oh, you're just a content creator, as if that's an insult. Like, okay, well, I'm also not being forced to play 6 hours of these classical tournaments to win $1,000. Like, yeah. But I think that being said, there is still this mindset in chess that, like, I think the best chess players in the world probably deserve more, get paid more. And I don't think anybody's going to disagree with me on that. And I think it's with the expanse of the chess world, there's a bigger slice of pie for everyone now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you mentioned the Queen's Gambit. We talked about it. The kind of like when that kind of show hit Netflix at that kind of perfect time as well. It couldn't have dropped or landed any better, really. That kind of, did you see kind of a real spike in engagement as well after that? We were kind of seeing and thinking, actually, I'm really, because chess is one of those games that I grew up, and it was something that I always played at school. We did like a bit of speed chess here and there, and it was fun. I always really enjoyed the game. Hence on Twitch Rivals, I kind of it galvanized me to get downloaded on my phone, and I'm playing it all the time again now, just to keep my brain ticking over, But I think did you see that there was a real kind of spike in your world as well, kind of the engagement from a wider community because of that TV show?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the chess world basically 100x'd overnight. After that, people still always ask me about the Queen's Gambit. It was crazy.
And do you find as well that you've become because being a woman in the sport as well, I mentioned that China, there's a huge kind of all the kind of the female chess players in the world. It seems that's really the place that is kind of dominating right now. But I mean, do you kind of, you've become somewhat of a role model in kind of some respects as well to other kind of young aspiring chess players, you know, because you've had this journey where you were kind of, you're competing from a young age, you've gone through all over the world to do so. Is there any weight that comes with that too? Do you kind of find that those kind of kids that you would teach and such kind of look up to you thinking, Nemo, you're my hero?
I honestly sincerely hope not, because my own personal journey with chess wasn't love. It was out of desire to go to Harvard or something like that. So I would say I never looked at myself as a role model, and therefore sort of like don't act as such and have no interest in trying to be a role model for everybody, for anybody, in fact. I think I was just always a kid that like, I never really had any role models growing up. Like I would look to Ho Yifan, who's she's like the youngest women world champion ever, and be like, oh, I really want to play chess like her. It's just so happens that she ended up doing her master's degree at Oxford, so now I do look up to her for everything. But anyways, I think growing up, I was always like, oh, it'd be really cool to play chess like that person. But I never really wanted to be that person. I think I always try to tell kids that, like, say, oh, you're my role model. Like, yeah, sure. But like, you know, make sure you have your own interests and do what you actually want to do and all that stuff, you know.
Get back to the kind of like the Queen's Gambit and such, when you kind of see this kind of world that it kind of showed, that there was a world that went beyond where she began. There's two different sides to it. I kind of see there's some kind of clips and such you see online of like this giant hall, tons of people all together going head to head. And then it seems to be that there's another side of chess, which is this kind of, you know, kind of in this beautiful kind of amazing manor homes or chateaus where everyone's kind of competing. Is that fair to say that those kind of two worlds do kind of coexist? That you have this kind of like this opulent kind of like, you know, world of chess where like the highest of the high compete, and that kind of like the grander world. Have you experienced that yourself as well?
Yeah, I would say chess tournaments are oftentimes held in like pretty nice places as far as the open ones. I wouldn't necessarily say opulence or anything like that. In fact, I don't think most what tournaments are you watching? Because the last candidates tournament,
Hollywood ones.
Yeah, I think you're watching totally different ones. Because I was gonna say the last chess tournament I went to that was in Toronto for the candidates was held in like, okay, the building was nice. I'm sure they picked out the location very carefully. But the floorboards were so creaky, you couldn't walk across, and like chess is played in dead silence. So I was just having a field day over there, like just stomping on the floorboards. Like, this is so loud. Like, it was an 1800 building. I mean, I don't know what tournaments you're watching, but I've never really seen chess played in like mansions or anything like that. Like, the chess tournaments are not nice. It's just like, I wouldn't call it opulence. There's some really nice tournaments out there, though. There's some tournaments that are held like in nice hotels, or especially for the top players, right? Like they're being treated like royalty when they go somewhere, and it's really cool. But yeah, it's not quite Hollywood. We're not quite there yet.
One day, Nemo. One day. I don't know why I think that was a thing. I imagine everyone kind of drinking expensive like Merlot wine.
Maybe back in like the 60s they were doing that. Maybe in Queen's Gambit. In Queen's Gambit, they were definitely doing a little bit of that. They used to be allowed to drink and smoke at tables. Thank God smoking isn't allowed anymore because my asthma can never. However, I do think they should bring back the whiskey drinking. Like, that's, I need one of those to get through my game.
That would be cool. Everyone just sloshed playing chess. Sounds amazing.
Honestly,
I mean, are there many like rules that, like when you're actually competing? You mentioned like silence.
Oh, yeah.
There. What are there any kind of rules or things you would think that I can't believe that's a thing, but whether it's a tradition of some sort or something that you can't do, or can you eat at table?
Adam, how much time do you have? Because I can go through the whole list.
Is it that long?
So it's that long. You're not allowed to talk.
The world needs
during
to know,
the
Nemo.
Okay.
We need to know now.
During a classical chess tournament, you're not allowed to talk to anyone. Period. Period. Like, unless you're talking to the arbiter, unless you're asking your opponent about something, like, you're basically not allowed to talk.
So no smack talk to your opponent, like,
yeah, no, absolutely not. Not during like proper tournaments. Obviously, there's bar events and stuff like that where nobody can do whatever you like. But yeah, none of that. I always gotten complaints because my leg always shakes. I have really bad ADHD. I can't sit still. So apparently, you're not really allowed to do that either. Tons of complaints. you're not allowed to. There's like a bunch of rules about clothing, like for the more serious chess tournaments. Like you have to dress very formal, suit and like basically suits, white shirt, like proper pants. Make sure your shoes are also following the dress code. No sneakers, nothing like has to be proper once again, like leather shoes, proper dress wear, like all that kind of stuff. And recently there was this kid in the candidates, his name's Alireza, whose shoes were too loud. Once again, the floorboards are really loud, so I thought this was dumb. But to be fair, he was also walking really loudly, so I'm sure it's a mix of both. But apparently you're not allowed to walk too loudly either, because then you'll also get a complaint, and the arbiter will tell you to stop walking. That's literally what happened. You're not allowed to eat at your table.
I think, do you remember those kind of those shoes back in the day? Like I think they're called LA Gear or LA Lights. That kind of flashed as you walk every step. Are those? I mean, they might be. I mean, they don't make any noise. They might be allowed. Probably not allowed, are they?
They're probably not allowed. Okay, so once again, if you play like normal tournaments, like open tournaments, it's mostly fine. Sure, you might still get complaints about like a bunch of the stuff. Like the dress code is a lot less strict at normal chess tournaments. Only at like the super top level chess tournaments, and the dress code's that strict. But on average, you're still not allowed to talk. You're still not allowed to use your phone. You're not really allowed to like eat. You're not really allowed to eat at the table. You have to walk elsewhere. There's rules that like if your opponent's a little more lenient about it, you can do it, but then you risk getting a complaint. So like once again, it's really about how much you want to risk it, and it's like whatever. At the top level chess tournaments, you get followed to you have someone following you when you go to the bathroom. This is for anti-cheat.
Like they're standing outside the cubicle while you pee.
Yeah, well, you can. Like, it's okay to talk to the FIDE officials. It's more the rule for not talking is much more like they don't want you just talking to your teammate about this position or something like that, or collusion or something. Like, it's not really like no, you can't ever talk. It's much more of a, yeah, please, we don't care if you're talking about tacos with your coach. Just don't do that kind of thing. Like people just don't. Like, cheating is such a big deal in chess that everybody's on high edge. No talking. So anyways, there's that. For a lot of the big chess tournaments, there's no, for important chess tournaments, there's no, like, walking around. You can't just go in and see the games. You kind of are either standing way above, like, on the stands, or you are stuck outside watching it online like everybody else.
I wonder if this is kind of like, there's probably a traditional aspect to it. Like, we've done this for generations. We're going to carry on doing it like this. And trying to just kind of make it kind of like the most controlled space for something which is such an intense, intense game for sure. It's mad to me though. That kind of the dress code thing really threw me. I didn't think there was like a specific dress code, because you see with like other kind of sports to a degree, and I'd class chess as a sport. It's a game, but a sport. You can see like there's tracksuits, there's branding, there's sponsors everywhere. Yeah, that kind of stuff. Just not a thing. It's white shit. Chess, it does need that.
Chess needs that. I've been saying this. Chess super needs that. Like, unless we're gonna get sponsored by, I don't know, like Brunello Cucinelli, I think that's one of the best men's suit brands, like Italian, whatever. Like, unless we're gonna start getting sponsored by men's suits, we need people to be able to have a little bit more of their own identity. Thankfully for women's, obviously, there's more flexibility just because women have more options. But for men, every single time I look over, I'm like, I would definitely hand over my car keys to this guy to valet for me. Like, thank you. Like, we need some variety for men's clothing, first and foremost, in my personal opinion. But secondly, we also need to be allowed to wear things that are not exactly just a white shirt and either a blue or black suit in chess tournaments.
You want personality. You want to see personality. Exactly right.
Right.
I mean,
like, get us that Versace sponsorship, Alireza. Like, I see you right.
Nemo, this is the beginning. This is the origins of that happening. This will go all over the world now, and that'll be a thing soon. I mean, before we kind of close out, the social side of things as well here, with like we mentioned some of the names there. Is there quite a social scene amongst chess players? It seems like it's quite a restrictive kind of, particularly at the top level, it's quite a restrictive thing, like socially, like everyone can't really speak to each other unless they're kind of outside of the building, the vicinity, or the controlled environment. Are there like WhatsApp groups for the Grandmasters? Are there kind of like get-togethers? Everyone know each other kind of outside of chess as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I would actually say most of the top grandmasters are friends with each other. There are also obviously a lot that are not friends with each other and they beef and all that stuff.
Rivalries are
But there's definitely
they're quite prevalent.
yeah, I would say rivalries are prevalent, but also most people, chess is a pretty small community, right? Like if you aren't going to be friends with someone in the chess world, well, you've kind of cut out half the chess world because it's probably half the other people are friends with that person. So it's like if you're gonna pick and choose, you have to be really careful about it because it's a very small world. Even though it seems like it's really big at like even for content creation, right? There's content creators, and then there's like a lot of people that are just creating content but not really making a living off of it. But even then, the number is still not that big. So yeah, I would definitely say in chess, it's a very, very, very big community, and collaboration is so important. You absolutely need to be friends with everybody. Otherwise, you're just like isolating yourself in that dark little corner and being like, well, I guess I'm just going to be here by myself.
Be a social butterfly. That's what you need to be as a professional chess player. Be a social butterfly.
Absolutely.
Lastly, the future of chess. Like, what's next for chess? Do you think, obviously we talked about the kind of the huge buff it's had over the last few years. Like, what does the future hold? Do you think? Do you think it is going down that route of like becoming even more mainstream than it already is? Like, what do you think kind of the next decade looks like for the game?
I think it's 100% going to be much more mainstream. I think people in chess just sort of need to accept that, like, if Hollywood wants to cover chess stuff, it's going to be about the Magnus versus Hans Niemann scandal.
I don't know what that is. I'm kind of like, what the scandal? This is huge.
Oh my god. Yes, this is a huge scandal. Well, Magnus accused Hans of cheating during one of their over-the-board chess games. It's relatively hard to cheat over the board. Also, it's not the hardest. So that is still kind of up in the air. The official tournament directors announced that Hans did not cheat, but unfortunately, Hans has cheated repeatedly online. So, not a good look. Reputation is ruined, etc., etc. Hans has a very Andrew Tate person. Like, he's like wanted to go to Andrew Tate school, all that kind of stuff, wanted to coach Andrew Tate. So you can kind of see why this is not like a good thing for chess. However, this is exactly the type of stuff that Hollywood loves. So like I think for the future of chess, people just need to be more accepting that shit happens. Like, this is what Hollywood's going to cover. It might not be that match played between the 17-year-old and that like that people really pay attention to, but they will pay attention to this. And I think we just need to accept that. Like, drama happens. Chess is growing. It's fine. Even though a lot of people will know about that and not as many people know about this thing, it's still okay. We're still drawing attention to chess. Once again, there's a slice of pie out there for everyone. We don't need to gatekeep.
That's right. The pie is big, as you said now. Yeah. I'm trying to imagine how you would cheat in person, like being like, oh, what's this in my hand? Suddenly start messing around with players, with pieces. I don't know how you would do that over a board to cheat in that kind of controlled environment, but definitely going to look out for that. Kind of see what this scandal's about, because that's a big thing to call. Did he call them out live as well, publicly?
Yeah, he did. He basically withdrew from the tournament the day after. I was like, I'm done. He's cheated. So it was big. It was massive. Big. Massive, yeah.
Massive. Is massive. That is drama.
It was drama for 2 years straight, yeah.
Nemo, I've loved talking to you. Where can everybody find you online as well? Where can we find you socially?
You can find me everywhere under akaNemsko, AKANEMSKO, and thank you so much, Adam, for having me. It was a pleasure.
It's been amazing. I've genuinely loved this. Thank you so much for chatting to us, and thank you guys for listening and watching. And I'm looking forward to seeing the journey and what's going to happen next, particularly this new beginning of the fashion world collaborating with chess now, which you're leading the charge on. So, thanks so much, Nemo. Take care, and thank you guys for watching.